Hello. Today we're going to be looking at something out of the Player's Handbook for the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition. And today we're going into something that's a little bit more funky and requires a little bit of help from most people. It's out of the appendix, and we're looking at some psionics. So psionics in first edition was always handled with a little bit of care. We're looking at the ability for people to have, or the characters to have, outrageous abilities in some cases, and all through the power of the mind. It uses a number of points, which they then recover, and then they can keep using their abilities and so on. So the thing to remember with psionics is that the DM has to approve it. The first thing the DM has to do is understand how psionics works. And if the DM doesn't understand psionics, that's okay. They're allowed to say, I don't understand psionics, and I'm not including it in the game. And the players just have to go, okay, that's not a problem. Because it is a very tricky subject, and it can alter the balance of play considerably. It'll also open up different levels of creatures, and it'll change some of the ways that the encounters will occur, and the DM needs to really work out how many of those little nuances need to be played out. But assuming that everyone knows what they're doing, let's start from the top. So psionics are some mental abilities that the character has innately, and there's less control over what the character is able to do. So the first thing the character must have are reasonable scores. So what we have over here is a character that we've made up earlier. And if we look here, 16 intelligence, 15 wisdom, 16 charisma. The minimum requirement for psionics is a 16 in at least one of the following: intelligence, wisdom, charisma. So that qualifies, and we're able to roll for psionics. So this will only bring up psionics if a 100 is rolled on the percentile dice. So that would be these dice here. A roll, which is obviously a failure in this instance, 76. So the character does get some additional bonuses, but they aren't much. So for points above 16 in those stats, they gain some additional points to throw on. So at 17 intelligence, you get an additional 2.5 points. At 18 intelligence, it would be a total of +5. So wisdom allows for +1 for every point over 16, and a +0.5 a point for over 16 on charisma. So the maximum that a character can have with 18 intelligence, 18 wisdom, and 18 charisma is +5, +2, and +1 for a total of +8. So that still presents 92 or higher, which, as you can imagine, doesn't happen very often. However, it does happen on occasion. And let's assume, because we love to make these things, oh look, it's a 100. It's a double zero across the board. So this character can now display some psionic ability. Way, lucky us. So the first thing that the character has to do is understand what that really means. So the player is now going to have a number of challenges throughout his or her career as a gamer, because all of these things are kind of freaky. And as I said, the DM will now start to throw a few additional creatures in, and a lot of the monsters have psionic ability but don't get to use them because players or DM doesn't understand them, how it works. So the first thing you do after calculating all of your psionic ability is roll up to see how many psionic points. So points are a measure of attack and defense strengths. If we look on the stat sheet here. Trying to get some focus. Not too good. There you go. Attack strength, defense strength, attack modes, defense modes, major discipline, minor disciplines. So the disciplines are the actual powers. The attack strengths and the defense strengths are the points that you allocate, or your mind allocates, to the actual defense or attack. And then you have the number of attack modes available. All of this is random, and there's a lot of extra work for the DM, which we'll go through in a few moments. So, rolling percentile dice again. This produces a number that will be the base for our points. There will be a modifier, and we'll go into that in a moment. 32. 32 points. Now, the stats here. For every point over 12 are some bonus points. So 4 plus 3 plus 4. So for 11 extra points. If 2 of these were over 16, then that would be, those bonus points would be doubled. And if all of them were over, then that would be quadrupled, which lends to a lot of points, to a maximum of, which gives you a maximum of plus 72. If you've got 3 18s, that's 6, 12 plus 18 points, times by 4, which takes you to plus 72. So we have plus 11, 32, so that's 43. (43) attack, 43 defense. And our total psionic ability is that combined. So we have a total of 86 in psionic ability. That total 86 is important for when we're doing our minor and major disciplines, but our attack and defense strengths are based on that. So if we roll on to the next chart, because there's always a chart, how many attack modes do we have? And then we calculate how many defense modes do we have. And we'll run through some of those in a moment. 77. 4 attack modes. So you have 4 attack modes. The player gets to pick what they are. For simplicity's sake, we'll go with all of them, except we'll take out insinuation. A, B, C, and E. We'll call that A, B, C, and E. Rolling for defense. 65. 3 defense modes. We'll go FGH. If it's good for an illithid, it's good for us. FGH. And that's the selection of your attack and defense modes. So if we have a look here quickly, you'll see that there's range. And the number of points. Remember, we have 43 points, so we're not going to be zipping out lots and lots of attacks all over the place. and points for defense as well as area protected. Sometimes, as you can see with Intellect Fortress and Tower of Iron Will, generate a bit of a field. Okay, so you will notice that your points for defense are lower than your points for attack, which is the way it should be. You can defend better than you can by attacking. Alright. We'll just go through a little bit more, and then we can go on check out some Psionic Combat and how that works. So bear with me while I get the next bit ready. Psionic disciplines. So these are the actual powers that are used within the Psionics, and you have minor and major disciplines. Some of the minor ones can be as simple as healing, and the major ones can be becoming ethereal or traversing the astral planes and transporting between different universes. So from here we've got a percentage roll that we're going to engage in that will tell us how many. 65. Oh, it's just got to stay in focus long enough. 3 and 1. So 3 minor and 1 major discipline. So looking through here, it's all random. Cannot pick, unless of course you pick the select one option. And we roll a d12 and a d6. 1 to 3 being the low being 1 to 12, and then 4 to 6 being the rest ones there. So, first discipline is number 8. Detection of magic. Right. So, minor discipline. Detect magic. Discipline number 2 means it's going to be number 14. Invisibility. Now watch what I write here. -2. And then the third one, mind over body. -4. Then of course, our major, which is a d20, 18, shape alteration, -6. So these here, -2, -4, -6, that's the level that the power is used at. So being a first level monk, detection of magic can be used. Once the monk reaches 3rd level, invisibility can be used. Once the monk reaches 5th level, mind over body, and then, as you can gather, 7th level, shape alteration. So they vary. Sometimes these powers are the same or similar to the spells. So for instance, detection of magic. Exactly like the spell type of spell. Determination, 5% per level of mastery, and so on. And that's the important thing. That's one of the first head messes. You've got the level of mastery. So the level of mastery is not the level of the character. The level of mastery is the level that the spell is, the power is at, which is why it's -2, -4, and -6. So 2 levels are later, you get your next one. 2 levels after that, you get your next one. 2 levels after that. You need to collect all the minors before you can start with the collecting of the majors. So by the time you are 7th level, you'll have a 1st level mastery of shape alteration. And shape alteration resembles a magic user spell, Polymorph Self, and you can change how you want it to be from that point on. So you become that creature or that shape or that object, but you do not allow for the special attacks, but you do get the claws and the bites. So you get to change your shape, but not get to become that, as opposed to the polymorph where you become that. The garments, equipments, everything you're carrying transforms into the new body shape. So it's more powerful than the spell, but less complete, just to make it as a differentiator. So it's very, very specific, and you need to be very careful how these things work. With mind over body, which is very monk-like. You go without food or water, you can ignore cold and heat sometimes, and so on. Etc. So, you might be thinking, why does this look so difficult? Why do people shy away from it if all it is rolling a couple of dice, adding up some points, which is no different than what we're doing elsewhere, and away we go? Well, let's roll it back a little bit. Let's roll it back one step from the disciplines to the defenses. When you're being attacked by a psionic power, the cost and the defense mode versus the attack has an effect, and your mind automatically chooses the best option. Then we've got, from an attack point of view, you do have some ranges, and at medium range and at long range, the effects are meant to be reduced once you get to these other ranges, so you do have something that stops. You just got to make sure you're within a range. Psychic Crush has always a chance of killing people outright, which is a very dangerous thing. And some of these you can still use, the Psionic Blast and Psychic Crush you can still use against non-psionic creatures. Whereas all the defenses are only good against psionic attacks. Alright, so that's part of it as well. Now if we roll it back a little bit further, possibly dwarves and halflings, but mostly humans, okay. And you need a 16 in either intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. So immediately you're opening it up primarily to paladins, clerics, druids, magic users, illusionists, and as some monks. So classes that already have lots of power, we're throwing in a little bit extra. It's not saying that they're the only ones that have it, but they're the ones that have the stats that are already 16 or higher as the minimum qualifier. So straight away, you've got powerful classes with powerful characters, and you're adding a new layer, which can also sometimes, as we mentioned earlier, open up newer forms of adventures. The Paladin travelling through hell will definitely be up against a great number of psionic creatures. So this is the start of the Psionics, and most of the descriptions are as per the spell or a few different charts. But the head mess is the level of mastery, is not the level of the character, but the number of levels that the character possesses with that power, if that makes more sense. So sometimes I'll say for every level of mastery, you get to do this. So this one is hypnosis. And then you also have domination, which allows you to take over people's minds. And you use the number of hit dice based on the levels, etc., etc. And these are all powers that use points per round. So when you're calculating your points, you're calculating your points based on what we initially rolled, and they get altered every single time you use a power or an ability. So you have hard fast number of points, 40 in this instance, 43, and you have 86 points. If this particular character decided to do the magic detection, which was 3 points per round, of the 86 in total, 3 would be used. So now the 86 becomes 83, and points come off here as evenly as possible. So a couple of points off strength, a point off defense, until healed. As you walk, as you sleep, as you just function normally, your psionic points come back. And same thing goes when you're being attacked. When you attack, you spend points, and when you become attacked, you spend points from your defense, and then you suffer points of damage based on the type of attack, which we'll go through in a few moments. So this is the head mess that makes Psionics more difficult for the DM, as there's less interaction for the player. The player says, I just want to do this. I'm going to attack with my Mind Blast, and so on. And then the DM has to work out what defense is used, and then what attack is going to be coming back, and so on. We'll run through a Psionic Combat in a few moments, but this is in effect, as simple as possible, how Psionics is put together. Psionic Combat. So for the DM, it will be worthwhile photocopying this page and giving it to the player, or printing it out and giving it to the player. If you're involving Psionics in the campaign, if you're involving Psionics in the characters, then those players are of a skill set where they can handle this. And as crazy as it looks, we're about to walk through it. So our sample combat today, the ever popular Mind Flayer versus our poor hapless monk. So as you can see, we'll run with the lower end Mind Flayer, about 240, and they have 1 attack and 3 defense modes. We won't worry about the other powers, and you would keep a track of it. What happens here is that it's a bit of a tallying structure in the way that it's all put together. So 120 attack, 120 defense for a total of 240, and 43 attack, 43 defense for 86 for the monk. Just keeping some notes as to what is what. So the Psionic Combat happens simultaneously, and it happens first. It's at the speed of thought, but the characters can't do anything else. So the Mind Flayer is just sitting there or standing there whilst it's attacking the monk psionically, which plays into the hands of when you've got lots of other activity going on, and the psionics can really hold down one character and keep them out of a fight for quite a while. So wandering over here, as it happens all simultaneously, the Mind Flayer has a 120, which is in here, has B, which is a Mind Thrust, and has these effects. So versus Mind Blank, Thought Shield, Mental Barrier, these are the effects that occur. So the mind automatically chooses the best defense, and the mind puts together how many points will be lost. So that's worth 3 points to spend for the mental barrier, and then 9 psionic points in total get lost. So that's the combined total, whereas that's actually just off the defense. And likewise, 4 points off the attack. And in return, the 43 points of an attack. And looking at what is on offer here, probably Mind Thrust is the best attack, and the Illithid does the Mind Barrier of 3 and loses 1 point in total. So how does that equate to the running tally? So over here, the Mind Flayer is attacked. So as you can see, it's -4. The attack over here, the defense is -3 for a total of -9. They've attacked for -4, and he's got does the Mind Blank and comes out with a -1. So that's 116, and that's 117, and then that's -1 off the total psionic and combined total. So 116 and 117 is 233, so that's 232, which then becomes 116 and 116 over here. That goes to 40, 39, and then 79 goes to 70 for 35 and 35. And it's simply a war of attrition. Then the next round, the Illithid is attacking with 116 strength, so still within this category here, 116, and does the same levels of attack. Attacks with 4 to inflict 9 versus the Mind Barrier, and so on. As the power decreases, some of the scales do change a bit, and that's where there's a strategy to it all. And of course, not everybody has the same defenses, and some defenses are better against other things. If you've got Psychic Crush for 14 points, those percentage chances are chances to kill your opponent. So the best thing to defend with is usually up this end. And everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. So if you've got an Ego Whip, there's certain defenses that are useless against it almost, and just massacre it. Then there are others that aren't worth the points, but they also do a radius effect of defense. So a Psychic Crush reduces them, as you can see, that's the top one here, and then has an area of effect. Terravine Will has an area of effect of about 10 feet, I think it was, and it protects others. So once you're reduced to 0, you're in effect unconscious. Then we go back to, if they keep assailing, that's when they can do some mental damage. But what is also happening is that the rest of the party are doing their thing. So whilst the Mind Flayer is engaging mentally with one particular character, it's not defending itself against the others. And that's the strength. So 10 rounds of mind combat equal 1 round of normal combat. And based on this, it's certainly not going to last 10 rounds, but it's going to take a few, and that will affect obviously the Mind Flayer against the rest of the party. That's why they lurk in the shadows, they hide at the back, they stay away, and they mentally engage without getting into too much of a fight. They can levitate and so on, and astrally project, where they can attack from different planes and so on. So the Mind Flayer itself becomes a much more dangerous creature once you've thrown in psionics. They're already dangerous, but they just become more dangerous. And you can see how this can add some bookkeeping, because in the 15 minutes that it takes to do this for a character, between 2 characters, the rest of the party are just twiddling their thumbs. So that's the other point you need to make sure about when you're getting involved with psionics. But these are the things that we do. So that's it, psionics in a bit of a nutshell. The combat, remember, is simultaneous, however the disciplines are not. So the disciplines take up the actions during the round, and in the normal initiative would happen at the same time as just around the same, during the normal initiative rounds and so on. So if the character, this character, once at 3rd level or higher, becomes invisible, then they become invisible. And unlike normal magical invisibility, this is a mental invisibility, so they're actually wiping the existence of that particular character from the mind of the people around. So if the objects around don't have a mind to wipe, then it doesn't matter. And the detection of invisibility it's not the same type of it's not the same as the magical invisibility. So then, in the middle of combat, make yourself invisible and disappear, or in the terms of the monk, reposition and attack from behind. Alright, so finally, nothing to be scared about with psionics, but it does definitely open up a can of worms, and there's definitely a lot to take in. And this particular chart here, out of the Dungeon Master's Guide, is well and truly worth understanding a little bit more. And making sure that the players are fully aware of their disciplines, if that's the way that they wish to go. Thank you very much for your patience. This is a little bit tricky, but I tried to break it down to make it simple. And let me know if psionics was something that you had in your campaigns, or that you dealt with, or your players wanted to play with. And not talking about the 2nd edition where it was a class in itself. This is psionics of very much a more of a random element. A little bit more carry, which is also in there if we have telekinesis and pyrokinesis and combustion, spontaneous combustion. And I hope you guys have a good time playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. 1st edition, the only true edition worth playing. Well, thanks. Alright, thanks guys.